All right, let's talk about wide receivers. The guys at the top of our rankings are Tyree Kale, Stefan Diggs, Devonte Adams. I mean, what a week for Devonte Adams that he's going to have to go against Jalen Ramsey. I mean, ordinarily it would be, easily Devonte Adams number one, but in this spot, ranked number three. Sean, who are you high on this week?
I'm high on Diggs, just because of what you said. I have Devonte Adams just slightly by point 0.1 below him right now. Yet Adams is 1.3K more expensive. I don't love Diggs' matchup either. He's facing Baltimore, who have three great corners. It's really going to be hard to move him around to avoid a tough matchup. But you could say that with pretty much all receivers this week. Maybe Tyreek Hill probably has the best matchup, but we're not sure if he's 100% healthy quite yet. But this is a tough week for receivers, so I'm more than willing to just spend up on Diggs. He should be a lock for plenty of targets. So I'll have plenty of Diggs shares this week. But the one guy I do like that's a bit more under the radar is Rashad Higgins. He's 4,100 right now. Again, I mentioned that Baker Mayfield has some sneaky upside this week. I think Higgins is a sneaky stack partner if you're going to be even more contrarian and not go with Landry. Last week he ran around 86% of the time. He's a full-time player, consistently under the radar. And when Baker had that good stretch, weeks 11 through 15, Higgins was the wide receiver 22 in half PPR. So he's one of those guys that a 4-game slate, you're going to have to be somewhat contrarian. And he just seems like a no-brainer play at 4,100, which it is in a game which, the Browns could throw more. It could be a shootout. So I love having some Higgins exposure here.
Sean, you mentioned that this is a tough week, really, for all of the wide receivers, and it's true. If you just kind of look down the cornerbacks who were left in the playoffs, so obviously you have Devonte Adams going against Jalen Ramsey. On the other side of that, you're going to have Robert Woods matching up against Jair Alexander, the most. And obviously Woods moves around the formation, so it's not as if he's going to face Alexander all the time, but that's the guy he's going to face the most. And Alexander, second team All Pro this year. I think arguably he should have been a first team All Pro, but I mean, even if he's not, obviously in that elite tier of cornerbacks this year, and then you just go through all of the matchups. Baltimore obviously has great cornerbacks. Buffalo has Tre'Davious White, who is likely to be shadowing Hollywood Brown. For Cleveland, Denzel Ward might return, and he's not going to play in the slot, so it's not as if he's going to be shadowing Tyree Kale. But when Hill is on the outside, I think he will probably match up most with Ward, and Ward is one of the few cornerbacks who really does have the speed to at least maybe to hang with someone like Tyreek Hill as much as any cornerback can. Kansas City, with the defense that they play, they don't have like a marquee cornerback, but they are pretty good against wide receivers. And then in that final game, we have Tampa Bay going against New Orleans, and we have that great matchup of Mike Evans versus Marshon Lattimore, where Lattimore is just in Evans' head at this point. That is a fantastic one-on-one matchup. And then on the other side, you have the Bucks, who have a great pass defense, going against Michael Thomas. Whether Thomas is lined up against Carlton Davis, who's pretty good against big-bodied wide receivers, or whether he's matched up against Jamel Dean, who's had a good season. It's a tough matchup either way. So you just look at all of these wide receivers, and you can come up with pretty clear reasons not to be on someone. And so yeah, within that context, I mean, Stefan Diggs is still standing out to me as someone I want to be pretty high on this week. For all the reasons that you mentioned, tough matchup, of course, but he has such a high target share. And again, every wide receiver has a tough matchup, but Stefan Diggs has league high marks in the regular season and receptions and yards receiving. And then last week, 128 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. He's just, I think, playing a cut above. So Diggs is someone I'm very high on this week. Raybon, who are you high on this week?
I still think Tyree Kale is another guy we shouldn't forget about. Going against Cleveland, and yes, Denzel Ward has the speed to guard him, but as you mentioned, like Ward is not going to move around as much, and Andy Reid had the week off to prepare. This Cleveland defense, clearly the worst of the past defenses remaining in the playoffs, I think. So I think Diggs could also have just a monster game. I mean, excuse me, Hill could have a monster game. So that's going to be interesting the way ownership shapes up, because I think Diggs will get higher ownership just because he's cheaper. But, with the ownership on Mahomes, we could see a lot of stacks kind of equalize it. So depending on the ownership is how I go. And another guy is on the other side is Jarvis Landry. Landry, it has been really balling out for the last month and a half when he's been in there. And I expect this Cleveland team to be playing from behind. So like Landry to continue to put up big numbers.
Yeah, I'm with you on Hill. I do like the analysis there because out of the number one, kind of top tier wide receivers we have, he is the one who has the best matchup because he does play in the slot so much. And then, just going against a pass defense that isn't as good as the other ones anyway. I will definitely be keeping an eye on the practice reports for Hill during the week to, just to see how available he is. Because if he's healthy, yeah, absolutely with you, Raybon. I think at that point he would be the number one receiver on the slate. Raybon, who are you low on?
So you kind of hit on it, but I mean, Devonte Adams, I think gets a little bit of a peg down. And then on the other side, I think the Robert Woods in particular, the Green Bay, just their perimeter defense against wide receivers has been excellent. And Woods is going to play a little more on a perimeter than Cooper Kupp. So, he gets carries, he gets kind of scheme the ball. So it's not always a complete dud for Woods, but I do think we should expect a little less this week.
Sean, I think you also are low on Woods.
Yeah, I'm low on Woods as well. Typically he's worth every penny, one of the most underrated receivers in DFS. But, at 5,900, Jared Goff and his thumb, it does lower his floor quite a bit. So that's a concern. Freeman, you mentioned that he could face quite a bit of Jair Alexander coverage. So, last week he caught 4 balls, 48 yards and a touchdown. So if he's not able to salvage with a touchdown again, I like I said, his floor is a bit lower. I think there's much better options with higher floor and ceiling in his price range. So I'll be fading Woods, which is rare because, like I said, he's usually worth every penny.
The one thing that would be interesting, we need to monitor Cooper Kupp, who has bursitis in his knee. And so if Kupp is out, they will use Woods as the primary slot receiver. So that will mean he doesn't have to face that tougher perimeter defense against wide receivers. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we progress into the weekend. A guy I'm relatively low on is Mike Evans. And I mean, I mentioned it before, like his matchup with Marshon Lattimore. Lattimore is one of the most like boom bust cornerbacks in the league. Like sometimes he looks like an all pro. And then the next game he's giving up like 120 yards to a backup wide receiver. But whenever he's facing Mike Evans, it just seems as if like he is totally in a locked in mindset. And Evans is still dealing with a knee issue. So Evans isn't 100%. In week 1, Evans had just 2 yards on 4 targets against Lattimore. In week 9, had 64 yards on 6 targets. Given the other options that they have in that offense, and given that Lattimore almost certainly will be shadowing Mike Evans, I don't know how much they will feel the need to force targets in Evans' direction. So I could see, a bigger game for Godwin, maybe bigger game for Antonio Brown, with Evans really just not being a key part in the passing attack. So I am relatively low on Evans this week. Sean, I saw you smiling over there. My fear is that you might be asking for the player prop, some sort of question on Mike Evans, but maybe I am wrong. Sean, give us the player prop.
I am going with the matchup of the week here: Devonte Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. So let's go with Devonte Adams receiving yards. I have it set at 89.5.
I will take the under. I have it projected at 88.5.
Ooh, nice.
So strong under.
Yeah, I have it at 86, so going under as well. And Adams can affect the game without you putting up a huge total. We've seen, he can still score a touchdown or even 2, but I don't expect him to have a huge yardage there.
Yeah, I mean, 88 and a touchdown. That's still a great day for a typical wide receiver. For Adams, it would seem like a total disappointment. And honestly, like for Ramsey, like if he holds him to 88 yards or something like that, like I mean, I don't know if I'd say that was a success, but it's like Davonte didn't beat them. if Devonte Adams has only 88 yards and a touchdown. So that might be kind of the way to approach it if you're the Rams.